Welcome, part 3 on 1, 2, 3. And if you don't remember what we did last time, we ended up dropping one apple at a time and changing the letters to ASDF. And it works, separate letters, you hit the letter, it drops and keeps reappearing. The weird thing was on key press, what we learned is that whenever you run on key press, like you can't clear the on key presses. Like there's no, so if you add the type A and to make it drop, but then it switches to S and you want to remove the thing that makes it drop with A, you can't. And there's no way to do that I could figure out. So whatever you make on key presses, they exist for the whole program. It's kind of lame. I wish you could change that. So you have to like make it run a function so that when you press it, you kind of do another check to say, hey, you pressed that. Is A active in a way? And then you run a function through that. So you have to like kind of put another step after you use on key press. I don't care. That seems weird, but that seems how you do it. And that's what I've looked online. That just seems how on key press works for Turtle and this Python Turtle stuff. So there you go. And that was the code right here. So what I wanted to do in the final step was to make it have multiple apples on the screen and then make them like a random list. All right, so I'm gonna go where I left off on the code. Is that 16 basically? They have a few things on reviewing lists. So they actually, PLTW kind of walks, because if you want to have like 5 apples, yeah, we were discussing last time in class whether you could just have it like 5 separate variables and functions, but it gets kind of messy, especially if you're just repeating what those functions do. A cleaner way would be to create a list of turtles, and which we've done in similar activities where we're creating lists of turtles. You have multiple similar objects on the screen. So we're going to do that kind of stuff. Now, we walked through a few examples here. So for example, in 17, we want to modify this code to add a 4th turtle to this list. So if you hit play, and you probably can't even see it, it's so small. I hate because like it's never really sized right. So we're going to pull this up and shrink it. We want to add it to have a different color and head in the opposite direction from the turtle at index 0. So what does that mean in English? Well, so this makes a red, blue, and green line. Boom, 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 right? What I want it to do is add it so it has a 4th turtle going backward from red. Backwards, right? So following this code, you see this kind of repeating process in here. So it creates an empty turtle list, and then this 3 steps makes a turtle, changes it to red, adds it to the turtle list. Turtle, changes to blue, add to the turtle list. Turtle, changes to green, add to the list. We have a 3 thing repeating, right? And then, so if I want to add another turtle, I just got to copy that 3 steps. And what do I want to make this color? Let's make it orange. All right. And that'll add it to the list. And if I run, nothing changes because we haven't done anything new yet. So now we get to the second part. So the first one, list O, goes forward, stops. The next one sets a heading to 45, then moves forward, and then 315 and go forward. So I probably need to set a heading to go, I don't want to go this way. If I want to go the opposite, remember your unit circle, the opposite way is 180 degrees. So I'm going to switch this to 180. This will be turtle list 3. There's that. I bet that's going to work. So let's find out. Disconnected. Got to hit run again. Okay, so we're building up to something here, folks. So perfect. It ran backwards. Exactly what we wanted. Now, one thing you'll notice here, like we got a lot of repeated code. So what we want to do is, I mean, instead of just repeating that same line of code and it's getting messy, because especially what if you wanted to change it? What if you wanted to add another line, like the turtle did something else, like it came back? Well, then you got to add it for each one of these. And so it becomes harder to edit. It's like more prone to mistakes too. So the next part of this is about, okay, so it says, what happens if you do a turtle list 4 in the command? Okay, so you don't know. We only go from 0 to 3. And if you remember from list, if you're outside of the index range, you get an error, list out of index range, because there is nothing in the 4th index value. There's only 3 things. So that's how we get that error. All right. You'll need to iterate over a list of turtles and letters to respond. So we're going to do it this way. Let's practice. So we got a new one right here. So we're going to practice over a list of turtles by modifying the code so you have 6 turtles, each of which sets its heading to be rotated 60 degrees. All right, so if I was to draw this on my screen, I like doing that. Okay, so boom. We're going to annotate this. So ignore what it does for now. So what I want it to do is basically, you have your big old circle. Can I just draw a circle? Yeah, you got, like, that's your unit circle, right? Perfect. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. So it should basically 60 degrees for each of these. I'm going to stop the code. You know how 60 degrees works. I'm going to do lines. So it should be about halvesies right there. That's halvesies. And then I think it'll be about there. And probably like right there. So that's not to scale at all, but the idea is each of those is going to be 60 degrees, right? So I want different lines to go out. Now, I'm going to do it through a loop command, or want to make some kind of loops. And let's use a for loop. So they give you an example here and say, hey, here's how in works. Or that. They give you this example of how in works. This confused me. But let's turn these in. So I got a turtle list. You see how the first part, we see how we have like 3 things happen. We're going to make, and we're going to do 6 turtles. So if you want to do a for loop, you go for I in range 6. We learned about range one of the last video or 2 ago. I don't know. It's been forever. Right? Right? And this means it'll repeat 6 times. So what do I want the 6 times to do? I want every time you repeat, do these 3 lines. And I'm going to tab those, right? But I don't want, okay, so I want to do this, change the grid, and then this. But wait, I want it to be a different color every time, right? How do I do that? If you remember back to the first unit, and when we went ahead different like turtles or different colors on ours, we had to make not just the turtle list, we had to make the turtle colors. Turtle colors list. I'm just going to call it like that. And so these are the colors that are going to correspond. So we actually have to build this first. So we maybe go red, blue. You can do single quotes too, or double quotes. It doesn't matter. Green. Let's go yellow, dark. Let's do gold. Goddle. Gold. We'll do teal. And then we will do, I don't know, pink. There. I got 6 of them. So instead of just pulling red every time, I want to pull something from this list. Because I have this I and it represents a number, I can use that to reference an index in the turtle colors list. So I can go turtle colors list I. And you remember they had those animations and how you can iterate through a list using a for loop like this. Was it in the 122? I don't remember. I think it was 122 because they had like good little animation videos for it. Hopefully you remember those. If you don't, go back and check them out. All right. So there we go so far. And when I run this, I don't need all this stuff. So let's say I run it right now, just to make sure it works. Run again, please. Okay, nothing is centered. Okay, notice it. Do. And then for some reason, at the end it starts moving. Ignore that. Ignore that part. Let's see. This to be centered better. Being picky. No, I don't really want it to be centered. Just gonna get rid of that. All right. So what I got to do next is I want to put a loop for this part too. So I want to become big boy. I want to make the loops right. Right? So I want to loop through all these. So each turtle. Now, one thing I can do, I'm actually still going to do I in range 6 again, because I want to do it for all 6 of these turtles. And the reason I'm going to do an I in here, you'll see. So every time you draw, 2 things should happen. We are going to move forward an amount, and we're going to set our heading. So what if we do turtle list I, instead of just saying the number right there? Let's see what happens if I do this. Oh, wait. It just keeps drawing straight lines. I'm getting rid of this garbage. I don't want that. I don't want to do that. I want it to rotate 60. But here's the problem. I'm doing the set heading afterwards. No, I need to do it before. So I'm going to do that before. Oh, wait. I want every one of these to be 60 more. Right now, it's just setting everything to 60 degrees. Well, that's not right. How do I make it so that each one is 60 more than the previous one? Now, there are different ways of doing this. You could make a variable. I think when you had while loops, you had like this count equals 0. Or maybe it starts at like 60. Or we go degree equals 60. Maybe you have something outside like that. And you set that to degree. And then you added 60 to the degree every time. So degree equals, like doing plus equals 60. This adds 60 to it every time. So you can do something like this. And then every time it loops, it adds 60 more degrees to it. There you go. Cool. I'm going to show you another way. I instead of doing degrees, since I have that I, we can do some math here. And I is a number, and it's going to increase every time. So what I'm actually going to make it, the degree be, is 60 times that I. Because I'm adding 60 every time. So doing some math, I can go 60 times I. And every time I goes up, the degree goes up by 60. So there you go. Spread them out. Yeah, I started the red at this angle instead up here. If you want to change that, you can add an extra 60 right there if you wanted to. Sure. You want to do it that way? I don't care. We're still getting this point across. So that's one way to use these loops. I want to show you another way to do this. So I'm going to call it turt in turtles list. So they had a thing in the in where they talk about what you can do with in is you can use this variable and you can just say in the whole list. So it'll basically do this for everything in the list. Now, if I do turt and turtles list, the problem is, I can say turt. Say, hey, I'm referencing something from the turtles list. But the problem is I don't have this I to multiply by, right? Well, how do you make it go up by 60 every time? Does this math work now? Oh, no. And turtles, turtle list. I hate that. Okay, that doesn't work. So this is the case I'd have to do my variable for degree again. Be set to, and you have to do the degree as plus equal thing. So I could do it this way, and maybe the lesson was looking for you to maybe do it like this. So if you just want to, instead of like just having number and just doing a count here with the for list, you could just say, hey, I'm going to do this to everything in the list. That works too. I don't know if I like this better. I mean, I think that looks grosser. But I think it's neat when you're using a number to count up here and you have to come up with some number that changes every time. You can use that number to and do some math around it just to make that change for you. Like you're using that number as a reference to the turtle, but you're using that number to also figure out how many degrees that turtle should be turning. So it's like a dual use for that number. So I wouldn't do it this way. I would go back and do whatever. Can I go back in time? I would go back and do it the way I originally had it. Times I. I like this better. So stick it like there. All right. Doing the next one. So blah, blah, blah. Okay. So next thing that they kind of ask you to practice is this confused me a little bit. So, hey, we're going to need to make random numbers or choose random letters from a list. So let's practice like making a list of random things and then being able to tell if a certain value is in the list. So let's pull this up. I hope I reset the code. Yeah, this is what you get to start. It doesn't run because I don't know why they said print numbers. I don't know if that's supposed to be a typo or not. Or if that's supposed to be, oh, it's not referenced right. So it makes a numbers list, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to print out the list down here just show you what's in there. And then this says, hey, if 2 is in the list, print out if 2 is in the list. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do instead is let's make this not be just the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's make each of these a random number between 1 and 4. How do we do that? You're like, I don't remember how to do random numbers. So I pull up my list of commands. Boom. I go, oh yeah, I got to import. You import your random stuff. And how do you do a random number? Boom. I don't remember. Have that command up, man. Get your notes ready. So I'm actually going to do a for loop. Since there's 4 things in the list, I'm going to go for I in range 4. I like using this to say, hey, just do this 4 times, right? Every time you do this, I want to append a new thing to numbers list. Append to number list a new thing. What's that thing going to be? A random number between 1 and 4. And what this code will do right here, does it 4 times. It'll add a random number between 1 and 4. All right? So watch what happens now. Append. Oh, it's number list.append. Duh. That's right. And there you go. My numbers are 4424, and then it prints out 2 is on the list. If I run this again, 1343. Random numbers. All right. Now, what I wanted to make it do is PLTW says, hey, make this check if the number 4 is in the list. So not 2. So I like that this in thing, I put this in my notes. Like, this is what they're trying to explain. You can use in. It's almost like in has dual uses. Like, I can say for I in range 4, and this says, hey, for every number in this list of 4 things. So for I, which is whatever variable you create, and then this in the list. So it means like, hey, I'm going to go through everything. But you can actually use in to be a true false check. If this number is in the list. So like if I make it a variable, that's a new variable, it's like, it's about going through the whole list. But if I say that's an actual number or a specific thing, I can check if something is in that list. That's kind of crazy, to me at least. Can you actually just type in here? No, you can't. So I kind of put that down. You can use it as like a true false check. So it returns true if 2 is on the list. That's kind of neat. It does both. So let's check if 4 is in the list. So if 4 is in the number list, what I wanted to write, I want to say 4 is on the list. So now it says it'll check for 4. But we also wanted to say if 4 is not on the list, I wanted to say 4 is not on the list. How would I do that? Well, I can do a num. If you want to, you can use nots and stuff. You can use not equals. Is there a not equal in the number list? You can put a not outside of this. Like that. But that's weird. The easiest way is else. If it's in the number list, you print this. Otherwise, 4 not on list. Boom. 4's in the list. 4 not on list. There you go. So what we learned here is how to check if something's on a list. We learned how to make random things onto a list. I love when you can get text messages on your watch and not on a phone, because then it looks like I'm looking at my phone, I'm just looking down. be a text message. You never know. Anyways, what was I doing? Okay, I'm done with this. Now, all right, I'm going to add 5 apples. For those of you at home, I don't know how long this is going to take to explain this. I'm going to change this code so there's 5 apples. But first, I want to show you that I've done it. This took a long time. And man, if you did this, you might do it differently than me. Because the weird part about this code is it was designed for just one apple as a variable. It wasn't designed with lists in mind. I just said these 2 variables. So guess what? That means every use of apple has to change. Every use of apple letter has to change. Right? So that means I have to change these. Because I'm going to have the list of the letters on each apple and the list of apples. Kind of like in that last, because we had the color list and then we had the apples list. We're going to have to do the turtles for the apples and then the colors. We're going to have to do the turtles for the apples and then the corresponding letters on the list. So we're going to need to make 2 lists. And that means a lot of things have to change. And then it also meant that behavior in certain functions had to change. Because I can't just, randomly pull apple from these global variables. I have to pull the certain apple was a turtle. I have to pull a certain apple that's referenced through like an index number. And so I had to make some changes. Here's what I came up with. Watch when I run this. So I just have it as ASDF right now because I didn't want to make more, but here's 5. And yeah, they duplicate, right? Who just showed up? Anyone new? Type in chat. So if I type the letter S-A, or A, it drops. F drops. D drops. S drops all the S's. They overlap. I need to spread these apples out or make them smaller. But you see it's working. S, F. If I hit D, nothing happens. 5 A's. I should just keep hitting this till they're all A's. F, D. It's going to be satisfying right here. A's. There's still more A's. Okay. All right. So that's how it works. But as you see from this code, a lot of stuff going on. I had to make some lists. And then the problem after you make the list, right? Okay, so I have 2 options. I was going to do a bunch of letters, but I was like, I don't want to copy and paste a million things. I'm going to leave it at 2. I had to make these 2 lists. And then I was like, oh, well, I got to add all the apples to the list to start it up. So boom, add them to the list of the for loop. Kind of like what we just did with moving turtles. And then, so the weirdest thing that happened, the whole drop apple function had no parameter in there, no arguments. Parameters. I'm calling parameters. But to make it work, I think I needed a parameter, the index value, the I for the index of the array. Index of the, we don't call them arrays, we call them lists in Python. So I had to pull that in, which means every time you use drop apple, you have to return this index value. So I had to change all these. And then, okay, so there's a lot of stuff going on here. Well, that's the first look at it. Let's actually walk through creating this. Did I fork this off? Yes. So, showing that because I don't know how far I'm going to get, if I'm going to explain everything. So the first thing I said is, hey, and this is the challenge. Like if you design this code just for only one apple, now I have to go back and change it. Like this could be a whole lesson itself right here. But let's try this. So, hey, I created 1 apple. So my thought is I need to have a list. Just like last time, I'm going to follow what I just learned on those lessons. I say, okay, so I'm going to go apple list. Make it blank at the start. Apple letters. Okay, Okay, I'm going to call it like that. Make this a blank list because there's no apples and there's no corresponding letters. It is so dangerous to have letters and letter as variables. Like so close. That is a horrible practice to do. So, all right. So one thing I know if I'm doing this, I'll have to change that later. So now what I want to do is say have these lists. I don't want to like do this and just create a turtle. I want to make these. I want to do a loop to make all these turtles. So I'm going to say for I in range, how many am I going to do? How many? 5 apples, right? I'm going to do. Okay, so we got to call it. We can even just say apple. No, I don't want to use the same variable. So app equals turtle. No, turtle dot turtle. And then I want to append that to that list. So apple list append. I want to put that app in there. It makes sense to call it apple, but I want to do this. So I added that to the list. And that's it, right? Not quite, because I also want to add it to the letters. I want to add the letter in, right? And I want it to be one of these random letters. If I know I'm going to have to use this letter list, I think I have to put this above, and that's probably true. So I'm going to put it above, right up here. I'm going to keep it at those 4 letters right now, because I don't want to add more. Don't want to make it more complicated right now, right? So pretty bad enough. So I want to append to this apples list too. Apple letters dot append. Now what am I going to append? I'm going to append one of these at random. How do I pick a random thing from a list? Oh man, let's go back to my random commands. Oh, rand.choice. There we go. So I'm going to copy and paste that thing right there. Put rand.choice from the Apple letters. Nope, not Apple letters, from letters. The original letters. So makes turtle, appends it, and then append a random choice. Honestly, what I could do. Why even make this variable? You can just do that as one line. Sometimes this gets grosser to look at because you're like, big line. But if you know what's going on, boom, 2 lines. Cleaner, to me at least. Your choice. Done. So I made those. Who's here? Are we done with the last? Wait, hold on. All right. I think I left off after appending to this list, right? And I don't need these apples anymore. Okay, so a danger is when you highlight this in Replit, it'll tell you where the variable is being used. I don't want to use this apple anymore, so these all got to change. Same thing with apple letter right here. Apple letter and this apple letter. These all got to change right here. So, yeah, I'm just going to comment these out for now. I don't want these. The danger is if you don't do this, you might forget. Yeah, and a random choice, and that was it for now. So the other thing is, okay, you made a list of letters, made a list of apples, done, right? Define some functions. Okay, so now when I draw an apple, it don't work that way anymore. I don't bring an apple in. So before I brought an apple, which is a turtle, but I want to draw all the apples at the start. So I'm not going to do this. I want to do all 5 of them. So I'm going to do another for loop. For I in range 5. I want it to draw all the apples. All right? But it's not apple. That's a turtle. I have this I, which is an index value. So I'm actually going to... Well, you can do 2 things. I chose... You know what? Maybe I can just do this differently now. What if I just did, I can still pass an apple. I can go apple list. Though the problem is, okay, I said, let's just pass apple list. And I, right? Perfect. Oh, you think, oh, that's perfect. That passes a turtle, right? And so then you get into here. The problem is you also draw the letter here. But I don't want to draw I don't want to draw a letter that I generate right here. I want to draw it from this list. And it has to be the corresponding one to that apple, that turtle, right? So I can't just pass. I don't think I could just pass this list. Either I have to pass the list and the letter, or I'm just going to pass the index. So it's just going to pass the number that the index value. So all of this is going to change. I'm going to call this index instead. And that changes everything. So it's not the active apple. It's going to be the apple from the list index. Just like this. Every time active apple is used, I'm kind of packing an index value, and then I can just use it right here. Yes, I get all these squiggly marks. I'm just changing every one of these and hoping that works. Gross. Oops, this didn't copy right. All right. So that passes all those. Now, another thing is we use apple letters. We ain't using these anymore. I already generated your apple letter way above. It's not apple letter anymore. It's apple letters and then the index value. Maybe it could have said I instead of index. So that should pull that off. Now our function, I think, is good. Okay. The next thing. Oh, now this pulls out apple letter. Okay. So this is bad and this is bad. Well, let's talk about when we press a button. Press A. I go in here. I don't want to just check. If I press A, I have to check all the apples, not just one. So I'm going to go back to for I in range 5. I want to check all the apples. If, not apple letter, I want to go apple letters. Why do I call it plural? If that, whatever reference on that list from this index is equal to A, I want it to drop that apple. But how do I know which apple to drop? Well, gotta pass that index value. Now we got a parameter up here. And guess what? I guess I could have passed the turtle. Okay, so apple letter index, and then I want to draw a new apple. But I'm not passing the turtle anymore. I'm passing the index. So I can just actually say index. It's going to pass this index to back into this index. I think this should work. So now I got to copy and paste this. S. Do it for each one of these. D. What's kind of annoying is I'm not really testing out this code as I'm making this. And these, I mean, this wasn't, before we kind of did incremental changes, right? I didn't really do incremental changes here because I just had to edit everything. I just hoped it worked. Seriously? Sometimes it gets like this. Let it sit there forever. Let's hope this works. Stop it. Exit terminated. Let's go. Okay, now there's 5 apples. So if I hit the letter A, S, F, A. No, it's working, right? It'll drop all of that letter, and that's fine for now. I'm not worried about it. One thing you might notice, it's not updating the letters. I want it to have new letters every time the apple regenerates. The only time it creates choices is right here, right now. So I need it to append, and I probably want to do that. I need it to change it, and I want to do it probably every time I drop the apple. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Oh, the smartest thing to do would actually probably be when I draw the apple. It's when I create it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it this way. So not messing with my old code. When I drop the apple, I am going to change the letter. So we can go to Apple letters. And then at this certain index value, we can set it equal to a new letter. I can just take this choice. And this will change that to a random new letter just by that line of code. Every time you drop it, that's when you regenerate apples. Maybe you could have made it a separate function if you wanted to. That's one way to do that. Come on. I'm tired too, Replit. But we don't have choices. We got to keep going. Okay, so if I go A. Oh, is it not changing? Not changing. Do I have to make it a global? I swear I had this changing. That should change right there. Oh! I'm not doing it. I have to do it before I draw the new apple. Duh. Ew. Notice it's changing. They're all overlapping, but you can kind of see it now. Like, keep pressing A's. I'll make it all D's. There, now everything's a D. Now watch. So satisfying. Sure. So there you go. It works. You want it to be unique letters, or you want more letters? Sure. I could do this, but now I would have to copy and paste for all this. I'm just too tired to do that. You could also do a check where you check to see if the letter's already been used, and then you can choose a different one. So maybe when you choose the letter, you could have like a choice of saying, hey, if that's already on this list, like if that letter is in the list already, try again. I'll leave that up to you to create. I'm done with this. That's it.